Welcome, Devil Hunters! I decided to make a whole guide for Dante in Devil May Cry 5. In this guide, we will cover everything Dante has at his will. Styles, weapons, and more, including glitches and bugs, and it will go into sections to have a better explanation. The guide will be effective explaining the fundamentals of Dante in the perspective of a style player, which means it won't be effective if you want to speedrun. I'm a style player specialist, and the goal of the guide is to have fun while playing Dante and mastering all kinds of techniques he has, adopting a stylish gameplay for yourself to enjoy the game and share it with others. This guide will assume you have the basics of the game already, and at least you completed Devil Hunter difficulty to unlock Dante's potential. All his weapons, Sin Devil Trigger, and irregular full custom. My goal is to share the knowledge I have through all these years of playing Dante, and explaining the most advanced stuff you can do with him. Introduction is done. Now, let's get this party started, shall we? In the first section, we will cover weapons order, the pros and cons for different loadouts. We also assume you're going to utilize full Dante's kit, and this means using a loadout of 4 firearms and 4 devil arms. This loadout is extremely important if you desire to master everything Dante has to offer, because every weapon gives you something unique to combine. And this opens up the big question: which order should I use for my weapons? The order is indeed important because the system cycles through all your weapons. If you want to use your previous weapon, you need to press the switch button 3 times. This can be hard for some stuff you may want to do, but sometimes is necessary. So, it is helpful to have the weapons you use more, or the ones that have more combinations, close to each other. For Devil Arms specifically, there isn't something I can recommend. It is subjective, although there are some tricks you want to know. The key in the order of your weapons is Devil Sword Dante. You need to build your loadout around this sword, because the summoned swords are a passive move. You can do anything while using the swords and won't get interrupted, but you need to have it equipped when you're casting the swords. This means that if you're planning a tight combo using Balrog and want to combine it with summoned swords, you want to have Balrog right before Devil Sword Dante to avoid pressing the weapon switch button too much. Take a look in slow motion and pay attention how easy it is to use stingers after friction. This means that in our loadout, we gave priority to Balrog. Talking about Cavaliere, this weapon is very slow on all of his moves except Redline. This means you normally won't have any problem if you want to combine it with DSD. What I'm trying to say is, maybe it is a smart choice to move Cavaliere far away from DSD. There is another trick that, if you manage it properly, makes a lot of ideas easier, and potentially could change your loadout entirely. I'm talking about King Cerberus. This weapon is known for having different modes, but we will talk about that later. Right now, we will focus on the electric moves of this weapon, that requires charging up the melee or style button a few seconds. You can take advantage of buffering if you want to use these moves. Buffering means that you're charging up the electric moves while you're doing another action. Pay attention and see that we're holding up the melee or style button while doing different moves to buffer. Why am I telling you this, and how it can change your loadout position? Simple, because you can buffer the electric moves while having another weapon equipped. You may have guessed, but I'm talking about using electric Cerberus while having DSD equipped to use the summoned swords right away. What's the advantage of this trick? Pretty simple. Let's say you have Cerberus, Cavaliere, DSD, Balrog in that order. As soon as you start buffering an electric attack, make a double switch to DSD. You'll have enough time to use the electric move and the summoned swords on the same weapon equipped. And on top of that, you're 1 weapon away from Balrog, which in reality is 3 weapons away from Cerberus. To make it short and simple, With buffering, we can execute electric Cerberus using Devil Sword Dante in conjunction with summoned swords, making in some cases 2 weapons in one, and using electric moves while having another weapon equipped, which gives you an easier time to cycle through your weapons. There are a huge amount of setups, and the possibilities to make combos is almost limitless, so stick with what you like most, having known what we explained before. Now, for firearms, things are a little different. There is one weapon that forces us to act very quickly after we use it, and that's the shotgun. If that's not enough, shotgun displaces the enemies when they're close to us. This means that a jump cancel after a shotgun shot is needed to be fast done. And if we want to prevent the enemy from falling, we want to use our most basic shot, which is Ebony and Ivory. So, I largely recommend to put shotgun right before the pistols. Besides, jump-canceling shotgun with Faust or double rocket launcher won't give us any benefit at all. As for the styles, you want to have them always at maximum level. And finally, for the moves you need to buy, basically upgrade all your moves in the shop too. You can try having Stinger and Slipstream to LV1. These moves travel less distance than LV2. Revolver to LV1, which is a weak version of Revolver that has less hit count, but is not recommended. One of the most asked questions is, what is the correct control scheme I need to use to play like a pro? This doesn't have an answer, as most people use a different layout. You may ask if it's okay to use the keyboard or stick to the controller, so we will talk about that now. The most 3 common devices to play are keyboard only, keyboard and mouse, controller. Each one of them has pros and cons, and of course you can adjust to any of them based on your convenience. Using keyboard only forces you to have very good coordination in all your fingers, because you're going to control everything in the game using only the keys, and there is no button that actually gives you a hint of what you're doing by pressing it. Dante has a lot of needs to take care of at the same time. Devil trigger, switching styles, moving, lock on, camera control, hitting, jumping, and so on. Imagine you need to do all of that at the same time by only using the keyboard. The advantage of the keyboard only is that, since all the keys feel identical, you will have the same APM for all of your actions. Whatever action you have assigned in a controller in L2 or R2 will be inferior to your keyboard for that same action, as the triggers are not meant to have high APM, for example. Using the keyboard and mouse gives you the advantage to control the camera very easily, since you're going to use the mouse buttons to play. But also, by just moving your hand a bit, you'll be controlling where and how you'll redirect the camera movement. This is really dependent on the mouse you have, for good or bad, how many buttons you can assign to it, and such. Controller is the most common device to play DMC since the game was born on the console. The best advantage of the controller is that you can just boot the game and play, and you'll feel comfortable with any layout you assign to it, since the buttons and the grip of the controller is way more convenient than the keyboard for your hands. Also, don't underestimate the stick for movement. Having the possibility to move wherever you want with the stick, unlike a keyboard which has only 8 directions, is a really good advantage. You can counter this in the keyboard by moving the camera and using the directions fully in 3D, but it requires more coordination. The disadvantage of the controller may be the hand injuries due to constantly needing to slide your fingers and adopting such unorthodox techniques to have good APM. Also, if you use the famous claw grip, which is positioning your left hand to cover the D-pad and the stick at the same time, your both hands get exposed to even more injuries at the cost of being way more precise with style switching. It is important for you to feel good when you play to avoid injuries, and knowing when to stop if that happens. Having said that, the button layout you should be adopting only depends on you and the device you use. As for DMC5, considering that charged shots are not needed at all for Dante and the Devil Trigger button, L1, is needed to be held due to Sin Devil Trigger, you can keep the default layout for controller, and you won't have any problems executing whatever you want. If you find a better layout or more comfortable one, feel free to try it. Now that you've prepared yourself, let's take a look at Dante's Devil Arms, starting with Devil Sword Dante, which is the core of his whole arsenal, from now on DSD. But first, let's make something clear. We're discarding Sparta and Rebellion. Why? Because DSD offers up almost everything Sparta and Rebellion has, but adding summoned swords and other very interesting tricks that you must have in your arsenal. Normal Cavaliere and single Kalina Anns are out too. They're useless and cost precious space in our loadout. The only advantages Sparta and Rebellion have over DSD are 3 moves, and each one of them are not necessary at all for what we need. So, consider to use these 2 swords only in specific combo scenarios. Otherwise, you'll lose too much value in your gameplay. These 3 moves are Round Trip, Instant Prop Shredder, Helmbreaker in neutral input, Let's start with DSD. This sword is the core of Dante's kit for pretty much everything, is the most important weapon of all, and opens up the possibility for all other weapons. That's why we're reviewing it first. It complements them perfectly, and most of the time, you'll use all other weapons with DSD. At first glance, DSD acts as the classic Dante sword, similar to Alaster in DMC1, Rebellion in DMC3 and 4, but that's only on his melee button. All classic moves, except Dance Macabre, are on the melee button. And here's the best part. The Swordmaster style are summoned swords that have different properties, can juggle enemies. And what makes this insane is the fact that all summoned swords are passive moves, meaning you can do anything you want while you use them. There are 5 variants of summoned swords you can use. 4-handed, high times, stingers, round trips, and interceptors. Most of the time, you'll use the first 3. Each one of them has different purposes and properties, and it is important to know that you can't use more than one summoned sword's move at the same time. You need to wait until the swords disappear. There's a way to cancel the swords you casted, but we're going to talk about that in another section. 4-handed juggles the enemies with the summoned swords, but do not displace them. Useful when you want to hit only or gain time. Is interesting because the hitbox of 4-handed extends a lot at the end, so you can catch enemies from far away. High times launches the enemy. Self-explanatory. The swords disappears quickly. This is good if you want to use another summoned sword move again. It has so many uses. Because of its property, you can keep making combos infinitely. Stingers push the enemy forward. It is important to notice that Stingers has multi-hit properties, so you can potentially stop the trajectory of the enemy with another attack before Stingers ends. Stingers have a small delay, or cooldown, before disappearing. And this is annoying because you can't use another summoned sword move until they disappear. Take this into account. Round trips maintain the enemy in a hit state, the same as when you throw Rebellion using round trip, giving you time to prepare other attacks or do whatever you want. Often used to land attacks that require a lot of preparation time like Red Hot Night or Kalina Ann missiles. Interceptors hit the enemy similar to Vergil's summoned swords, but also producing knockback. It has a condition to be used. They're available only when you use swords formation or being in DT form. We will talk about interceptors in depth in the next chapter. Why are summoned swords that important? Because it helps other weapons to do their job and opens up a crazy amount of opportunities for making combos. You can knock back the enemy with a simple stinger, but stopping the enemy to go far by using high times at the right moment to launch him. So, in the end, Our stinger acted as a move to lift the enemy and start to make a combo in the air, thanks to summoned swords. See what I'm talking about? You need to combine this in a creative way. It will be up to you on how to use the summoned swords and the loadout you have. Remember that you need to have DSD equipped at the moment you want to use the summoned swords, so you will need to cycle through your weapons to reach that place. Make a smart loadout so you don't have to cycle all the time for your favorite and desired setups. Swords formation are summoned swords that Dante gets when he uses the styles in Devil Trigger form. We can use swords formation in human form too, by holding the melee button with DSD equipped for a few seconds. When swords formation are activated, all styles gains a new property. Trickster has Reactor, which gives extra mobility. The swords helps Dante and gives him one more dash, Skystar, Trick Up, and Air Hike. Swordmaster has Chaser, which makes all attacks in Swordmaster using your devil arms to have phantom swords complementing the move you're doing. This is one of the best uses of swords formation, because some of these phantom swords are really effective for juggling enemies or doing cool combos. And the best part is that you can cancel some attacks, and the phantom swords will still hit. You often see some of this applied into combo videos. Basically, all melee attacks has phantom swords, but we're gonna show the most known ones. Royalguard has Escort, which boosts the style in all ways. It gives Dante a bit more of super armor while using Royalguard style and gets reduced damage for each hit received. Also, all types of blocks give more Royal Gauge than normally. When Swords Formation is active, performing a block removes all current DSD swords you casted. It also resets the cooldown, so you can chain a new DSD sword immediately after using block. This is extremely useful to remove Stinger's long cooldown and allows new setups. Gunslinger has Interceptors, which are executed when an enemy is nearby Dante automatically. It can fire up to 4 summoned swords at the same time, one each against a different enemy, up to 4 enemies, stunning them, similar to Vergil's summoned swords. This is a very useful and advanced tool to use, but hard to master, because the Interceptors won't be fired to the enemy you're targeting with lock-on. You can manipulate this and stop using lock-on at the time you want Interceptors to attack your desired enemy, and instantly pressing lock-on again to avoid multiple Interceptors ruining your combo. This will cover the basics of DSD, but like we said, it is the core of Dante's kit, so we will be coming back to this sword a lot in the guide, because it has so much more to offer. I wanted to start by explaining the basics of this sword, because it will help to understand what you can do with all other weapons with it. You can think of Balrog as 2 weapons in one, using fists and kicks. Contrary to other games, Balrog has a split moveset, where you can turn your fists or your kicks by using mode change, which allows you to switch between one mode or the other separately. While in theory this is really good, the truth is that you're forced to use an active move in order to combine kicks and fists, and this is not ideal. You need to work around with this restriction anyway, because this is how the weapon works. Let's explore kick mode first. In this mode, all your melee strings are really slow. You have friction in the air, which is the diagonal kick that's been present since DMC1. This is one of the best moves from Balrog because it allows diagonal movement in the air and can catch enemies while descending. Updraft is really good to start making a combo in the air. This move is similar to High Time, but is even faster and lifts the enemy a bit lower. Of course, you can jump cancel it. As for the Swordmaster attacks, you can use Firestorm to make cool combos, which is the style button in the air. This move acts as an air launcher, and is good because it can build up different setups combined with DSD or Cavaliere. By holding melee in the ground, you start to build ignition, which is needed if you want to infuse your moves with new properties. For example, while ignited, friction will launch the enemy when hitting the ground. Flint Wheel can launch as well, making this a viable option for combos. While ignited, it is possible to use Pyromania, but this is not recommended to use it in the middle of a combo, because you can't normally cancel it, apart from the bad tracking it has. Going into punch mode, things become very different. Most attacks in this mode are short and quick, and it doesn't have a grounded combo string using melee. Instead, you can press melee infinitely, and Dante will do short jabs until you get ignition. 10 jabs are needed to become fully ignited, being one of the fastest ways to get ignition. You can enter into dodging mode by holding melee button and pressing left or right. This is one of the best evading tools that Dante has in the whole game. You can even counter-attack after dodging by pressing melee again. Fly Dragon can be a very good tool to launch and knock back the enemy at the same time, allowing a follow-up from other moves that behave similar to Stinger. Punch mode in the air doesn't have anything surprising. It has a double punch attack and a knockdown. The Swordmaster move is Dante descending at fast speed with a punch to the ground, which makes the enemy bounce back to the air if ignited. The neutral style move is a tornado punch that keeps the enemy being hit while Dante can do other actions. This may be useful for unusual situations, and even better if you combine it with DSD. Rising Dragon can be a very good starter for a combo and can be jump cancelled. Realm Impact can also be a good finisher. However, you need to be ignited to use it. You normally use kick mode in the air and try to catch the enemies descending while staying in the ground with punch mode, taking advantage of the movement that kick mode provides, and also keeping the combos with the speed and movement from heavy jolt in punch mode. Friction has an insane advantage over any other move that Balrog has due to the massive movement and opportunities it brings to the table by catching the enemies mid-air and being able to jump cancel to keep the flow. Finally, covering the basics of Balrog, we have Rolling Blaze, which is executed automatically when Dante jumps. It gives a little hitbox and can be hard to use in the air, because when we use jump cancel, Rolling Blaze won't be executed, so you need to use air hike if you want to have it. Here are some situations that I show how you can use it. Cavaliere is known for being the slowest weapon that Dante can use. While this is true, it doesn't mean it's useless. Most players only see value in Redline, which is the best move that the bike has. However, Cavaliere has a lot more to offer, but you need to think outside of the box to give the credit it deserves. Some of the stuff that Cavaliere brings to the table is already explored by other weapons in a certain way. That's why it's popular for being mediocre. Nevertheless, the more you explore Dante's kit, the more you realize that Cavaliere has unique interactions and properties that offer new things to combine into your combos, even if these are not so much different from other weapons. Before going into the weapon, let's make something clear. You will use Red Cavaliere in pretty much any scenario that's available, because Redline is extremely valuable to avoid. Normal Cavaliere only gives more super armor while attacking, which is not something that special. The first thing we're going to review about Cavaliere is the mechanic attached to the weapon, Gear Wheel. Every time you connect an attack with Cavaliere, you need to time the next one as soon as the first finishes, to trigger a faster and more powerful version. This is called overtop gear, and ideally, you want all attacks from Cavaliere to be chained like this. You will see the gears glowing and sparks all over the place when you're using overtop gear. Overtop gear can be lost in many ways, so most of the time you won't use it. But you need to learn this mechanic because it can be useful in certain situations, even for style play. Overtop gear will be lost if you use jump cancel or make a move that doesn't attack the enemy with a devil arm. For example, Sky Star, Guard, Rainstorm, etc. It will carry over even when you time it perfectly with other weapon attacks. And it can be carried over from the air to the ground, and vice versa. Now that the mechanic of the weapon is basically explained, let's start with the attacks. Neutral strings. All neutral strings, both melee and swordmaster in the ground, can be alternated. If you start the basic combo string using the melee button, you can opt for pressing the style button while in swordmaster, or the melee attack again, and both will work. Dante does a different attack, but it still counts to finish the chain of 3 hits. Depending on which button you use for the third attack, Dante will ride the motorcycle, or just make a spinning attack. Same can be applied when you start the string with Swordmaster. In the air, you can do the same. However, only the Swordmaster button can finish the string. Melee button in the air doesn't have an end, and you can chain melee, style button, melee infinitely until you hit the ground. It is really hard to make good use of the strings in style play, because all of them are long and slow. But you can take some parts like the first Swordmaster attack, which looks really cool and useful. And when it comes to aerial play, we want to reach the last string with Swordmaster, which is when Dante throws the bike to the enemy. This move can be jump cancelled, and it will displace the enemy violently, so it is a good way to use the pistols to catch it mid-air. This is one of the few cases where you want to use low gear, to reach the last hit as soon as possible. Something you will notice is that Cavaliere is really slow in the air and you will be whiffing a lot. This is normal at first. With practice, you will understand where you need to put yourself in order to chain the attacks. Just take a look on how it's done. In this case, the attack is too slow, so the enemy drops. But if we put ourselves under the enemy after jump-canceling Revolver, for example, we will be in the perfect spot to start using the attack. The first attack of Swordmaster in the air is very slow, but it has something really useful. This move is split into 2 parts, and the first part, when Dante swings the motorcycle and launches the enemy just a bit, is what we're looking for. It's really useful because it has a large hitbox that can catch the enemy easily. And also, if you put yourself under the enemy like the previous example, you can do a cool cross-under by using Guard and Skystar right after, just like this. Idling is a very interesting move. Dante does a backflip, which has invincibility frames, and starts to swing the motorcycle while splitting it, and it sends the enemy flying at the end with a powerful but very slow attack. Why is this move special? You don't see it often applied into combo videos, but let me be clear. It is the lowest launcher in the game, alongside with Cavaliere Air Combo B. The best part is that idling can be cancelled after the first hits, so you can take advantage of this launcher. You can go under the enemy with a simple Trickster dash pretty easily. Or you can use this move to keep both you and the enemy at low height, preparing a combo that requires low altitude. Crossline is just a regular move. You can cancel it before it does the knockback. The good part of this move is that Dante goes forward when preparing it, so you can take advantage of this to fix your positioning, or, in a different case, whiffing the attack on purpose, so you can end the combo with a cool backslide. Slipstream is extremely situational, and you won't see much use for it in style play. The backflip has invincibility frames, so you can use it to evade in a cool way, but it is so slow that even with DSD swords it's hard to use. If you're on combo making, wheelie jump has different uses. First, the backflip has invincibility frames too, just like other Cavaliere moves. It is the highest launcher in the whole game for Dante, and it can be jump canceled right when he goes to the air, or before finishing the move. The jump cancel window at the start is extremely tight, so you won't get it consistently. Also, after the backflip, you can input redline, and the move will be converted. You're wondering, why would I want to delay redline by doing wheelie jump first? Well, it has some uses. When you have swords formation activated, the backflip makes the summon swords to form a wheel, just like we've seen in the previous sections. You can keep hitting the enemy with that and convert the move into redline. Also, you can fire up interceptors in the middle of the backflip. This can potentially change the positioning of the enemy when hit by redline, and this can be useful for combo making. Look at the example. In a normal situation, we won't be able to hit the enemy by SDT jump, but thanks to canceling wheelie jump into redline, it is possible. Full throttle can be converted into redline at the middle of the attack. Again, this is very useful for combo making, because this is a grounded attack that can't be interrupted unless you use SDT. The DT version of this move makes Dante throw the bike, allowing for a very cool finisher. If by any chance you make full throttle and it doesn't go against where the enemy is standing, or the enemy is in the air, inputting redline will adjust the position of Dante. This can be manipulated, making full throttle fail on purpose so we can catch the enemy with a powerful redline and be able to continue our sequence. Let's check the remaining Cavaliere moves in the air, starting with high side. This is a slow multi-hit launcher. It won't launch the enemy any higher than Dante, but works flawlessly to grab an enemy if by any chance is hitting the ground or is falling more than you can manage. It is a wonderful move because it gives you a lot of time to think while juggling the enemy, and the hitbox is very convenient, catching the enemy every time after friction, revolver, and pretty much any other attack. Also, you can use high side as a movement tool. If you whiff the attack, Dante will ascend a little bit from the initial position. You can use this to your advantage. Just like the opposite of high side, we have braking. This move forces Dante to descend into the ground really quickly, like Helmbreaker. This move makes something exceptionally great, and that is grabbing the enemy from really above Dante, smashing it to the ground very fast, and having the chance to jump cancel, so Dante doesn't need to go to the ground. Normally, it's paired with Blaster Twins. It's common to do this with Helmbreaker, but braking does it in a better angle because it has so much more range coming from below the enemy, enabling setups that launch the enemy and catching it with braking again. And finally, we have redline, the best move of Cavaliere. This is like a full-force stinger that can be done in the ground and in the air, and it has a mini launcher when you jump cancel it. If you don't make a JC, the bike will keep hitting the enemy with a knockback. This is a rare situation where if you jump cancel the move, it changes the property of it. Redline can be used in many situations, enabling a lot of potential by catching enemies from afar, or using it as a movement tool. It works for so many setups that makes this one of the best moves from Dante. As something even better, you can reverse this move by holding back and stop pressing lock on for a millisecond after you did the move. Dante will ride Cavaliere in reverse, but the trajectory won't be affected. However, this will affect the hitbox of the move, sending the enemy flying contrary to the normal direction if you don't jump cancel. King Cerberus has 3 different modes: Ice, Fire, and Lightning. Each one of them focuses on different things. Ice attacks are fast and often used to easily parry. Fire attacks are somewhat slow, but they do a lot of damage. Lightning attacks don't do high damage, but they apply heavy stun. You can use Ice and Fire normally, but in order to release electric attacks, you need to hold melee or Swordmaster for a few seconds. We've seen how you can bypass this a little bit by buffering in the loadout section. Let's start to review Ice attacks first. The neutral strings are something you won't normally use because it does little damage and has low range. The only move worth mentioning is Windmill, but it's attached to a long string with a long startup, so you won't be using it outside of something really pre-planned. Revolver is a multi-hit attack that makes Dante ascend shortly into the air. If your opponent is close, you can jump cancel this move. Revolver can be done in the air too, and is one of the best tools to gain a desired position. This can be low or high, as it goes right in front of the enemy. You can decide when you want to jump cancel. Crystal is Cerberus launcher. It has a little startup before releasing the hitbox that lifts the enemy. But contrary to being bad, this is really good, because it helps build its electric attacks by delaying the hitbox a bit. It has a massive horizontal range, so you won't miss in most cases. Ice Age is an overpowered attack that makes Dante invulnerable while doing it, and can parry pretty much anything. It can work to juggle enemies as well because the hitbox is generous. Something that you must know is that Ice Age can be cancelled with jumps or guard, and you can abuse this to get a perfect block in situations where you wouldn't have it, because while using Ice Age, you're invulnerable. Finally, the last ice attack in the air is Swing. Just like Revolver and Crystal, Swing is often used to charge electric attacks. It is the perfect move to stun the enemy enough to keep juggling. You can think of Swing and Revolver as 2 preparation moves that work as a bridge. As something curious, Swing is nerfed compared to the DMC5 variant. No longer hits in reverse, lacking the hitbox in the final frames of the animation. This is a bit disappointing considering the possibilities of reverse swing in DMC5, but you get used to it. Neutral strings from Fire mode behave similar to the Ice ones. They're long and slow, except for the most basic one, which is Combo C. It is a string of 3 attacks, the last one being a powerful smash into the ground with the staff. This isn't good for combo making, obviously, but it can work perfectly for finishing a fight. Rockback is a very nice move similar to Stinger, but without doing a knockdown at the end. You often combine this with DSD summon swords in order to gain movement for you and displace the enemy with the swords. As a reminder, fire attacks can buffer electric attacks too, and Rockback works perfect for that. Hot Stuff isn't used that much. Just like Combo C can be great as a finisher, but the startup is really slow. You will use this more often for the damage. The only aerial move that Fire Move provides is pole play. You will remember something like this if you play DMC5. This move is great because it has a lot of different uses. As soon as Dante reaches the ground, he does a flip using the staff to finish the attack. However, that final step can be cancelled by executing any move, so you can use pole play in the air, descend onto the ground alongside with the enemy, and keep juggling it in the ground by cancelling the animation early. The other use is just juggling as any other attack. but since you're descending slowly without triggering a knockback, it gives you enough room to reposition under the enemy. Starting with the electric attacks, we have Long Barrel. This move isn't great in the ground, although it carries a great Swords Formations launcher. However, it is extremely useful in the air because it provides a fast knockback similar to Shotgun, but also can be jump canceled. Another good thing about Long Barrel is that if you do the move contrary to the enemy's direction, the knockback will go in the opposite direction too. Jump canceling this move is not easy as it requires strict positioning. That's where revolver and swing comes into play to adjust yourself. You want to be as close as possible and slightly under the enemy for a perfect position. Finally, due to the massive range this move has, you can use it after a rose throw, and with enough precision, it will hit the enemy in order to be hit by the rose, launching it. This setup is similar to Shotgun's one, but a bit harder to execute, and with more range. Long Revolver is pretty similar to a normal revolver, but has more range and hits harder. It doesn't have any use outside of normal revolver. The disadvantage is that the animation at the end of the move is slow, and you can't cancel it. Combine this after a shotgun jump cancel, and you won't ever miss the catch-up. While normal revolver struggles to do the same without effort. Thunderclap is a move with massive opportunities for making combos. The orbs will follow the enemy, but very slowly, and this can be manipulated in a lot of ways. As soon as the orbs hits the enemy, it will hit them repeatedly, similar to what Round Trips does. With enough creativity, you can delay the orbs while making a combo against the enemy. The orbs will always track correctly the target, so at some point, if you prepare something precise, the orbs will hit, opening the possibility to new and crazy combos like this one. Revolution doesn't seem to be very interesting. It is a move often combined with DSD swords in order to prevent the enemy getting out of your range, as Revolution does a knockback as soon as it hits. This move can hit in reverse due to its massive coverage of length, in some rare setups where the enemy is being pulled towards Dante but goes above him. One of the few moves that can connect is Revolution. You can use it as a finisher, for example. Turbulence is the same move, but in the air. It has some similarities with Fireworks, in the same sense that Dante floats while executing the action. However, Turbulence is really useful. It produces a knockback similar to a shotgun shot, and it hits up to 3 times the same target. The usefulness comes when you successfully jump cancel this move as soon as the first hit gets the enemy, so you can interrupt the action and go straight for another stylish follow-up. It has a massive hitbox. You can even hit the enemy in reverse, and still be able to jump cancel. Talk about more style points. You can do something like this. Next one is Percussion. This attack is slow, and is known mostly for the huge stun it does. Doesn't have too much room for style play because everything on this move kinda sucks, and you cannot cancel without SDT. You can juggle enemies using the first hitbox, which comes pretty fast, but you need to cancel the rest of the animation with SDT unless you want to use this as a finisher. And finally, we have Kingslayer. Similar to Pyromania, this is an automated long combo with only one input. Contrary to what you think, this can be really good for combo making or connecting some strings. The attack can be canceled with a simple Trickster dash, trick up, or guard. However, you won't see this used often. So open up your imagination. This will cover up the basics of Cerberus. As you can see, this weapon has pretty much everything except good movement, so is recommended to use it with Trickster and Balrog. Before going into the next section, there's a hidden move which is not present in the skill list. This is what we call Short Revolver. This is basically Revolver, but being done close to the ground, in height 0 state. The electric version of this move also exists. It doesn't have anything special. Basically, Dante skips all the animation from Revolver and goes straight to the finisher. Ranged weapons are complementary to Devil Arms. They're not supposed to be the main attacks of Dante, but go really well in combos when you combine them with your swords. We're going to try to explain the basics functions of each firearm in style play, and how you can use them in different situations. The more you discover Dante's full kit, the more you realize the amount of possibilities you have to combine, so it is up to you how you will use guns in the end. As usual, we start with the fundamentals, and that's the pistols, Ebony and Ivory.
Come get me.
At first, you may see the pistols as a useless ranged attack, mostly because they don't do any damage. In fact, this, in most cases, is something positive for style play. The usefulness of this weapon lies in the possibility to stun the enemy mid-air. It's a quick, short animation, a hit scan attack that enables a lot of setups for Dante, and makes others easier. Just like we've seen in the Cavaliere section, it can make adjustments to both you and the enemy positioning, as well as stopping displacements with a simple shot. This works exactly the same when you're on the ground. Just look at the example. Contrary to DMC3 and DMC4, the shot animation in DMC5 can be cancelled before the hitbox actually comes out. If you're wondering why your shot didn't come out when you quickly tapped another button after, it's because of this. It is a tiny timing that you need to adjust. A small pause before going into any other action. This happens with the shotgun too. You don't want to wait too long though, because it can delay your next action. There is a very small benefit from this though. Dante can turn 180 degrees with this trick without needing to execute another action. Some moves that don't make Dante automatically turns like Revolver can be fixed by inputting a pistol shot and canceling it before it comes out. In Gunslinger mode, the most common move is Rainstorm. You can control the direction of Rainstorm with the directionals, trying to imitate what's in DMC4 when you use this with inertia. You can switch sides with the enemy while doing Rainstorm too. Other moves that give Dante momentum, such as Air Mustang, will benefit Rainstorm by giving even more inertia to move further. As for the style button in the ground, Dante can execute Ebony Shot, which is a powerful but slow attack that stuns the enemy. This move is not recommended at all to use it, because it's just a heavy stun shot, but the animation is painfully long. If you stay in Gunslinger, the gun button will gain a benefit too, called Ivory Shot. Dante fires a 3-round burst very quickly. You can cancel the animation earlier if you go into Trickster and use Sky Star or Guard. This can be useful for some enemies that don't get stunned by a simple shot. The most common enemies affected by this are the Riots and Chaos when they're in DT. This burst will keep them stunned every time. Note that Ebony Shot can't be used in the air, since it uses the style button. But you can benefit from Ivory Shot at any time when you're in Gunslinger. If you just want a normal shot, you need to switch styles before pressing the gun button. By inputting gun, then style repeatedly, or style, then gun repeatedly, you can access twosome time. You can press the directionals to fire into different locations at the same time, potentially juggling 2 enemies. This requires high coordination, but is possible. Charging shots by holding the gun button doesn't add anything special. The shots will do slightly more damage and they may stun harder. Or not. This is why they're not even used. And finally, the last move of pistols is Honeycomb Fire. It is the classic Dante move where he uses the pistols like a machine gun in front of him. The downside of this move is that it requires a small startup, and compared to twosome time, it doesn't do anything impressive, aside of not being able to change directions when firing. Through the guide, you will see that most Dante setups, even in freestyle, require the use of Ebony and Ivory. A simple shot to stop a displacement is sometimes mandatory to keep the flow of your combos. However, you don't want to abuse it. You can use a shot every time you make an action or move around, but it is not needed. It is up to you how you develop this into your playstyle. The shotgun is one of the best weapons for Dante in the whole game. You will realize after using all Dante's weapons that shotgun is the one that combines a lot of setups in a unique way. The answer is really simple. This weapon does a knockback that can be jump canceled really quickly into any other action repeatedly. The arsenal of the shotgun is kind of simple. We're going to focus on the normal shot for now. When you bring this into the air, you realize how a simple attack can bring so many opportunities when you jump cancel it. The magic comes after the shot, and what you do next. Just look at the examples.
All right!
Like you've seen, the knockback of the shot is what really matters here, because we can manipulate the enemy's position when Dante himself can use different routes, like teleporting away, closing the distance with a sky star, teleporting above the enemy, and so on. Combining the knockback with a simple pistol shot, and you're manipulating when and how much. You want the enemy to be far from you. Fireworks is very similar to normal shots, but Dante can fire up 3 times and he floats when executing this move. This is really good when you need time. Something really important. Probably you don't know this, but jump cancel has a hidden cooldown. Some setups with normal shots don't work due to how fast you need to jump cancel them repeatedly. Fireworks can fix this because it takes a little longer to release the shot. Another thing you may want to know is that, at a certain distance, shotgun doesn't provide a knockback to the enemy. Instead, it only juggles them like a normal pistol shot. You can manipulate this to your own advantage, but you need to be familiar with the distance required for this to happen. Shotgun works extremely well with DSD summoned swords. Even if you don't jump cancel the attacks, you can let the animations play fully while you still juggle the enemies with summoned swords. A simple example of this is using fireworks while Dante floats, and using high times right after, resulting in the enemy being launched instead of being knockbacked. Charged shots are different from normal shots in the fact that charged shots lift the enemy a bit in addition to the knockback. This opens up new combinations compared to normal shots. It is possible to execute some of this in human form by just holding the gun, but it is highly recommended to use the charged shots in Devil Trigger form because they're infinite in this mode, and you are 10% faster. One of the things you can do with charged shots is the famous fireworks star, a technique that's based on sky star and jump canceling fireworks repeatedly. In the ground, the shotgun doesn't have anything surprising. You can use Gunstinger the same way as you use Stinger, and combine it with DSD. The new variants of Gunstinger, which are cut in, are not used often. Mostly because you'll be constantly moving around with so many other tools that cut in can be seen as something repetitive. Definitely is a great tool to use in mid-combo, or ending one with style. The cut-in variant where Dante jumps and allows you to jump cancel is probably one of the best, but it is very hard to use it outside of a pre-planned combo, because you need to sync your cut-in jump with the enemy's falling position in order to be able to jump cancel, making this hard to achieve. Finally, backslide is, at this point, the most known stylish move from the shotgun. It is the move that works perfectly for every combo finisher, and the only requisite to make it shine is to be facing contrary to your target. This can be achieved in a lot of ways, so try to be creative with it. Faust is probably the hardest weapon of Dante to use properly at first. Some people can see Faust only as a cheat button to kill anything with the meteor and the insanely powerful red shot. Other people don't like to have a weapon that seems to be a cheat, so they don't even use it. However, Faust is much more than that, but it requires knowledge and understanding of how it actually works. It is a confusing weapon, because it has very different purposes on most of its moves. So we're gonna try to go one by one, explaining how you can use them in your combos in a stylish way. Let's start with the red shot, which is the basic attack of Faust, the gun button. This attack is very powerful if you buy all the upgrades in the shop. It is a single target attack that stuns the target and sends red orbs indefinitely. The more you hold the button, the more damage it does. So, the first thing we're gonna do, if you want to properly use this attack into style play, is to lower the damage. This can be done by discarding all the upgrades and keeping only the level 1 attack. In this way, you won't have to worry about the damage it does, and the effects stay the same. The bad thing is that you can't use this as a replacement for the pistol shot, because this is not a hit scan attack. It needs to travel distance since it is a projectile, and the startup is slower, so you won't be using it for that. But it has some other uses. If you want to use it as a simple hit and move attack to stun the target, similar to a pistol shot, you will notice that Dante gains a lot of weight in the air by doing so. This, in fact, is one of the fastest ways to gain weight and descend quickly into the ground. We're going to talk about weight management in another section, but what you need to know is that quickly tapping red shot is a fantastic way to acquire weight. Due to being a projectile, my advice is to use it when the enemy is not being knocked back violently or being displaced with velocity, because the red shot won't catch it, or it will do so later than expected. It works flawlessly when you launch the enemy into the air. Next move is Set Hat. This is a single target attack that can be followed by Hat Trick, which is the pull that sends the enemy towards Dante. When you execute Hat Trick, both your position and enemies is equally important to get the result you want. It is substantially different if you use the attack in the ground or you're in the air. Same applies for the enemy. And here is when DSD swords come into play. Since Set Hat and Hat Trick are very slow attacks, you want to combine them with your summon swords, because you will displace the enemy according to what you want, generating a better result when you pull the enemy towards you. Most Faust attacks go insanely well with DSD, so keep that in mind. You can cancel Set Hat very quickly with any other action if you're far from your target. This is very useful when you want to put the hat on the enemy, but you don't want to use the pull. Beware. This canceling only works when you're far from the enemy, or if the hat is having a weird trajectory, because the cancel is based on the hat's trajectory. There's a minimum trajectory that needs to be reached in order to be able to cancel the animation. If the hat hits the target quickly when you're too close, you can't cancel it because it went too fast. It is recommended to use jump cancel as soon as the hat hits the target if you're too close, and use the normal cancel when you're too far. Now we go into Man in the Red. This skill is great because it can do different things. First of all, it is a shield that also attacks the target and can juggle. You can use this when you're under the enemy like this. It is recommended to not use it when you're normally attacking your enemy in a combo. It can screw your setups because it juggles all the time the enemy is close to Dante, stunning the target on each hit, so avoid it. As for the second part of Man in the Red, when you input the move again, all the orbs around you fly towards your target, knocking it back and quickly sending it far from you. This move can be used in a lot of ways, since it is a passive move. You can release the orbs while you're doing anything you want. It is usually paired with Hat Trick and DSD swords to make things very interesting, but you can use it like this if you plan to catch the enemy mid-air. There's a glitch with Man in the Red, where the orbs hits back at the enemy, and it can send him right back at you. This can be done by releasing the orbs, locking off immediately, and pressing lock on again after 1 second. If you did it right, you'll see some of the orbs hitting the enemy later than expected. This glitch also depends on your position, and enemy's position as well. It is recommended to use it between teleports or moves that violently make you descend to the ground. Don't think you can replicate this all the time, as the glitch is very inconsistent and the orbs can hit the target at any angle, or not even displace them at all. Going into the gunslinger attacks, we have Mad Hatter. This skill has the same effect as Set Hat, but Mad Hatter is being cast in a circle around Dante and hits all the enemies that reach the hat. When the hat goes back to Dante, you can use Hat Trick too. This move, unlike Set Hat, can't be cancelled with normal actions. However, if you're in the air and quickly descending to the ground, it can be cancelled itself when Dante lands. This requires having enough weight to become possible. If you jump cancel Mad Hatter as soon as Dante throws the hat and move around, the hat is going to follow you, deviating the original trajectory. This has a hitbox and can hit the enemies. You can use it in any combo or setup you want. Mad Hatter can miss, and you still be able to use the pull. If any enemy has the hat on, it will work. You can use Set Hat, cancel the animation quickly, and later on using Mad Hatter missing on purpose, only to get the pull in the same combo. Magic Hat requires a startup and makes the hat itself to be able to attack while Dante can do anything. It fires the red shot skill, and you can't use Set Hat or Mad Hatter while the weapon is around you, and you need to have Faust equipped. This can be really useful, especially to set up combos using Thunderclap, because the hat can keep the enemy airborne while you prepare the orbs. You have a lot of control on the enemy's position and can plan ahead based on this. It can also interrupt displacements, but beware, as most of the hard displacements can't be cancelled with Red Shot due to being a slow projectile just like we've seen. Finally, the Meteor doesn't have anything special other than finishing a fight. It can work as a finisher on annoying enemies, but that's it. As you've seen, Faust is much more than a weird weapon. The mechanics and little details attached to it makes this a very hard weapon to master. Rocket Launcher has little options in the move list to incorporate in style play. This is because most attacks are strong, long-paused moves that should be used against tough enemies like bosses. We are going to try to review the move list taking this into consideration. Starting with the basic shot, it's a normal rocket that sends the enemy flying. Similar to shotgun in the air, you can jump cancel this in a similar way. The difference is the rocket shot slightly pushing the enemy slower. You can adjust this to your liking. The advantage is that you won't be switching weapons. Undoubtedly, the best attack of this weapon is Blaster Twins. It has a lot of ways to be used and is extremely useful. An interesting detail is that if you input Blaster Twins after Skystar, due to the move being naturally fast, you'll be able to hit very quickly. This happens with any move, though. But Skystar and Blaster Twins goes really well together. This move is an air launcher that goes above and under Dante. It is extremely useful because the hitbox is very convenient. If you send the enemy straight down to the ground, the only attack that can send it back to you is Blaster Twins. Same applies when the enemy is above you, which happens a lot. It helps even more that it is really fast to execute. In most cases, you don't even need to jump cancel it. Now let's take a look at grounded moves, starting with Cascade. This is probably the best move from this weapon to use it as a finisher. The startup is very slow, but you can juggle the enemy while you prepare the attack with DSD swords. The range is huge too. Multiple Twins. I have mixed feelings about this move. The only good thing about it is that you can cancel it with SDT as soon as Dante starts firing rockets. If you allow 1 or 2 rockets to be released, you can use them in a combo with some great creativity. Hysteric Twins can be used as a finisher, but the attack is extremely bad, honestly. Is meant to be used against enemies that can't be displaced easily, so they eat all the rockets. Mega Cascade is that cheat button. The startup is one of the worst, so you won't be using this for juggling, obviously. As you've seen, the most worthy move is Blaster Twins. Some people even question if the rocket launcher is worth a slot, but because of this move alone, it is. If you're not used to style switching, you better start practicing. To get the maximum potential of Dante, you need to learn all his tools, and your challenge will be trying to incorporate all of them in real time. Style switching is one of these. We've seen how Swordmaster and Gunslinger are incorporated strictly to your weapons in their respective section, so we're going to start with Trickster now. Trickster is the best tool you have for movement. Not only is it meant to be used to evade attacks, it is also the best way to catch enemies in combos. Even the basic dash in the ground can be really good in style play. Trickster is the style you want to use every time, and all moves are useful. Yes, even Flipper. Dash can be chained into Mustang by holding the style button. Hear me out. This is one of the best ways to start a combo in the air. By using Mustang on a grounded enemy, you can launch him with Blaster Twins without being in danger. Mustang and Dash have invincibility frames. It can be ironic that in order to evade an attack, you want to go through it, but it works in this case. I don't think Skystar needs an explanation. We all know what it does. No matter your weight, Skystar will always move Dante horizontally. A must-need tool to reposition yourself in the air that allows you to use Air Mustang. This is a great addition to the style. Air Mustang provides you a cool flip that can be quickly canceled into any action, or just letting the animation play to keep descending. It really depends on you how to use Air Mustang. Some players use the flip to showcase a cool movement, and at the same time, adjust the height just a bit on your combos in order to not keep ascending to the ceiling. Air Trick is the easiest gap closer you have, and also a similar way to start a combo like Mustang, because the position you gain is similar. But in Air Trick's case, you will be really close to the enemy, allowing for more options, because pretty much all melee attacks will work. You can freely switch targets and keep using Air Trick since it doesn't have a cooldown when jump canceling. This shows how OP this move is. You can be in any place of the battlefield in a matter of seconds. The only condition, and remember this very well, is your target. Your final position when executing Air Trick depends on the target you're choosing. If you want to use Air Trick only for movement purposes, knowing this is useful. Everything said about Air Trick can be applied to Ground Trick as well. There's a difference, though. Ground Trick has recovery frames after you reappear. This is very annoying, and you should be aware that using Ground Trick will not be equally fast as using Air Trick. Of course, the benefits of Ground Trick are the possibility to use grounded moves very quickly no matter how high you are, which is invaluable. Also, when you're a combo master, one of the problems you will be facing in the air is, how can you stop ascending higher and higher until you touch the ceiling alongside the enemy? Well, we've seen how Air Mustang can lose height a bit, but by using Ground Trick while juggling the enemy, you will adjust this in a lot of ways. Trickster is a strict movement option that needs to be present in almost every combo you execute. We've seen how some weapons lack movement in their kit, so mixing Trickster into them is wonderful to add some variety onto your combos. Hitting hard looks cool, but what if you hit hard while moving? That's what Trickster does. Believe it or not, Royalguard has potential in combos. There are some small tricks you want to know about this style. Normal block can cancel a lot of grounded attacks. Is not as fast as DMC3 and DMC4 since here, block has recovery frames. However, some moves like Ice Age and Kingslayer cannot be cancelled with other melee attacks, so using block there is useful to keep your position. I don't recommend using it for canceling Million Stab or similar stuff though, because even a dash into Mustang is faster and better looking than block. When you try to use this in the air, there's a different effect. Dante gains weight immediately after using block, descending a bit. This is really useful to adjust your position. You can set combos to go under the enemy really easily by just using block and then Sky Star like this. Guard also preserves momentum. When you use any move that gives inertia like Air Mustang, Guard can retain that movement for a second, just like we've seen from Rainstorm. This is the closest you get to Guard Fly from DMC4. Now for Air Release, things start to be interesting. The knockback of Air Release will depend on the amount of Royal Gauge you have. Air Release at 0 gauge will not even stun the enemy. You can start to use it even at half of 1 point, which is the minimum for Air Release to start stunning. The cool thing is, you can jump cancel Air Release, so you can stop the knockback with a pistol shot, for example. Now, if you build up more Royal Gauge, the enemy is going to be displaced with a huge velocity. And look how you can set up a combo involving this. When the gauge is 4 points or above, the force is so strong that not only knockbacks the enemy, it makes them reach the ground very quickly. This gives enough time for the rows to hit. You can get infinite gauge recharge by using Super Dante, but take in account that the damage it does is very high, so you won't be able to do this outside of the void that often. Moving into Just Release, this move both in the ground and in the air acts as a launcher. You can even start a combo with it. And in the air, you can jump cancel it even before the particle comes out. Talk about more style points. If you're wondering why you can't jump cancel, Just Release the majority of time, is because you're probably hitting the jump cancel cooldown. Remember that in order to jump cancel, you need to wait a bit after you did a jump. A good way to coordinate a Just Release jump cancel is to whiff aerial rave attacks on purpose, or throw a rose to keep floating while waiting for the enemy to attack you. These tricks can help you on using Royalguard in the offensive, as some can be performed without needing to perfectly block or stand still. Now you know that Just Release can be a good way to start a combo. Devil Trigger has a lot of effects. Not only gives infinite charge shots and enables swords formation, but also gives one more jump, Sky Star, and Trick Up. Paired with DSD, and you rarely will be out of movement in the air, even without jump cancel. However, you need to control Devil Trigger like any other tool of Dante. We've seen how the different properties in human and DT form can alter the result of your combos, so it is best to manage it. Avoid being in DT all the time just because it gives extra stuff. For example, some swords formation attacks will displace the enemy more than we would like, resulting in ruining your combo. This is a common mistake that you should avoid. Apart from that, some attacks have a powerful version when you're in DT. They cost 1 bar, and in some cases the result alters the property too. Stinger is the most known move of it. Not only hits but also drags the enemy towards you. The enhanced moves are this ones. If you hold the jump button, Dante opens his wings and starts to descend slowly into the ground. This is barely useful, but is really cool looking, and you can buffer round trips or use DSD swords and Man in the Red in this state. Apart from a damage boost and healing factor, DT is very useful for enabling setups that in human form are not possible due to extra mobility or altering the properties of some attacks. You need to be smart using it, trying to not abuse it too much. Sin Devil Trigger is the overkill mode of Dante. In this mode, you're the boss. You get attacks that can one-shot any enemy except bosses. But there are restrictions. Once you enter SDT mode, you can't go back to human or DT form until the bar drains out. Apart from that, Dante is very clunky. Most of the animations have long pauses, and he does more damage than what we would like. In short, we won't be using this in style play at all, except for one important thing. There is a move called Quad S that allows Dante to enter SDT mode in short bursts, canceling any move that he's currently doing, and being able to go back to human form if you do it in the first 5 seconds, approximately. If you don't cancel SDT at the right time, you'll be stuck in that form until your bar drains out. The conditions to use this is having the style meter at SSS rank. If you maintain this, you can use Quad S with no costs at all. This is game-changing for Dante. The amount of possibilities on combo making that Quad S brings is huge. Every possible combination you can chain with SDT requires you to go back to human form very quickly again, so you need to master the inputs. You'll fail a lot at first, but practice makes perfect. Let's take a look at what you can do with this. Dante can cancel any action he's doing with Quad S. Once you enter this state, the burst will hit any enemy that is around you in a small area. This stops knockbacks and displacements, and you can use it to chain combos or create new ideas. The Ombra is the gun button. Dante fires a powerful energy blast from his hands. This attack has a knockback effect. You can use this and quickly go back to human, stopping the knockback with a pistol shot. This would have a similar effect than doing a shotgun, jump cancel, then shot, but without having to jump cancel, so you can do it at different angles. Advent is the style button. Dante performs a quick teleport into your focus target. This teleport has massive range, even more than Trick Up. Is not completely instant, so you need to think how you can use it. This is a common setup from advanced players that uses Advent perfectly. Or this. We have the SDT combo, which is melee 3 times. I recommend using the first 2 slashes to juggle the enemy, and then going to human form again. There's something interesting about this combo. If you cancel the second slash before it hits by going into human form, something similar to a summoned sword juggles the enemy. You can combine this with Air Mustang or whatever you want. SDT Jump is another very interesting move. It can only be performed on the ground. This move has a hitbox which can juggle enemies. The more you hold the jump button, the more distance Dante ascends. If you do a neutral jump, you'll go completely upwards. But if you hold any direction while doing the jump, you'll ascend towards the direction you're pressing. This is very useful for creating distance between you and the enemy for cool interactions. There is a hidden trick about SDT Jump. If you manage to go under the enemy using Stinger, Rockback, or any movement attack that forces Dante to be at the other side, use SDT Jump with any direction and quickly cancel it going back to human form. Dante will make a jump contrary to the direction you've pressed. This happens because Dante didn't have the time to fully turn before entering SDT. This is useful if you don't cancel the jump early too. You can use the hitbox of the SDT jump, and Dante will adjust his position the more you hold the jump button. At first, he'll go kinda neutral because he's correcting the turning animation. Sin Inferno is that big punch to the ground. It highly stuns all enemies around you and launches them pretty high. The launcher matches the Rose Taunt on the ground. Use the taunt as soon as you hit the punch, and it will hit your enemy if he's close to you. SDT Stinger is extremely helpful in these situations where you don't know what to do to keep your combo going. It has a massive hitbox, it tracks your enemy, and gives you a good position to keep juggling after you go to human again. A hidden trick about this move. As soon as you do the input, you can control the direction of Dante if you stop using lock-on. You can even go through your enemies using this technique. In order to make it work, the enemy doesn't need to be completely aligned in height. He needs to be a bit under or above you. SDT Dodge is another cool movement option. It helps by giving 3D movement. Due to the transformation having a hitbox, you don't have to worry about juggling when using the dodge in a close position. The dodge is supposed to have only diagonal movement, but there's a hidden trick to make it go back or forward. When you input SDT Dodge, quickly hold forward or back direction. Sometimes, the forward teleport might not come out completely perfect. I'm not sure about the cause of this, but it's probably a frame problem. A tip: if you do the side dodge but completely forward, you can follow with an Ombra shot and you'll create an interesting opportunity for combo making. The loose is really hard to use in a cool way. The startup of this move is very slow, and on top of that, the projectiles are slow as well. The best shot you have is throwing a delayed rose and quickly input the attack. Demolition has barely any uses outside of one shooting your target. The slow motion stop is pretty damn good, but canceling this attack is extremely slow. The slow motion doesn't alter the state of the enemy. If it's being launched, it will keep ascending once you cancel demolition. Even if you catch an enemy falling with it, when you stop it, the enemy will be on the floor already. Finally, my advice for judgment is to use it very rarely. This move can be a good finisher, mostly after a rose throw or similar, but the animation is too damn long that you'll be sleeping when it finishes. Plus, it does massive damage. One thing to know, as soon as you enter SDT form, all DSD swords are cancelled. You can cast new summon swords when you go back to human form. This includes all types of summon swords. As you can see, SDT is a very advanced tool to incorporate into your gameplay. Not only the inputs are complicated, but also the moves themselves come with some tricks that you need to master as well. Take SDT as a new layer of Dante's kit. Similar to how you need to incorporate style switching into muscle memory, same applies for SDT bursts. This small section is more focused on freestyle than combo making. Freestyle is the term we use for playing the game casually, clearing rooms full of normal enemies without having a structured plan on what you're gonna do. That being said, it is very important to incorporate all kinds of movement options you have. Some attacks have a lot of movement, but are not meant to be used for that purpose. Well, you need to find a way to make them play the role for it. The easiest example of this is friction. This is a diagonal kick that's supposed to be used for attacking enemies, but you can use it for movement purposes only. In cases where the move is an attack, it can parry as well, so you get that plus. In the battlefield against multiple enemies, keep the flow of your combos with constant movement, and even switching your target often is highly recommended to create a stylish atmosphere around your gameplay. In the air, remember that both horizontal and vertical movement are equally important. You can help yourself with ground trick and SDT to maintain a moderated height if you're going too high. Both Skystar and Trick Up are highly recommended tools to reach your target easily. Play with the movement options you have and find some interactions between that and your attacks, juggling your enemies at the same time you move around.
Come on, show me what you got.
Weight is the system DMC5 has to avoid your characters being infinitely in the air without effort. This system was already implemented in DMC4, but here, there are big differences. As soon as you go into the air, you start to gain weight every time you attack. If you repeat the same attack over and over again, eventually, you will gain a lot of weight, resulting in being on the ground quickly. Some attacks give you more weight than others. We've seen in other sections how Royalguard and Red Shot are attacks that give you tons of weight. While there are others like High Side, which gives you a bit of height, and at the same time are very slow, so you can keep your weight controlled. Weight can be reset by doing a jump cancel or hitting the ground. If you're heavy enough that you can't connect anything and you're far from your target, you can keep your combo using ground trick. To manage your weight, it is recommended to use jump cancel often on your target. If your plan is using moves that give weight easily, you need to have a backup in advance that involves jump canceling or hitting the ground. Attacks like friction change dramatically the outcome when you are heavy enough. Most of the time, it won't hit. So, why gaining weight can be beneficial? There are moves that benefit from being heavy, like Shotgun. Normally, Shotgun is a stationary attack, but when you're too heavy, Shotgun quickly forces you to descend onto the ground. This is helpful if you want to keep your combo there. We've seen how Mad Hatter can be cancelled if you hit the ground when you have enough weight. Air Hike don't reset your weight. If you're heavy and use Air Hike, you won't even get a proper jump. It is best to use Air Hike as a movement option. Using a sided Air Hike has a very cool animation. You can use Air Hike after a SDT dodge or teleport. By the way, SDT doesn't reset your weight either. If you're above your target and you're heavy enough, using melee attacks like Aerial Rave will help in reaching a good position. Some players don't even take in consideration that by attacking constantly, they're gaining weight. This makes it harder and harder to keep a good position against the enemy. That's why throwing some jump cancels here and there, even if they're not needed, is positive. Throughout all the guide, we've seen and explained that most of the things you can do in the air involves jump cancel. Like I said in the beginning, I assume you have the basics of the game and beat it already, so you should know what is a jump cancel or enemy step at this point. However, one thing is knowing what it is, and something different is knowing how to properly use it. In DMC3 and DMC4, the jump cancel animation when you jump using any directional is similar to a normal jump. In DMC5, the animation is horrible. It's still similar to a normal jump, but Dante doesn't turn if you're jumping backwards using lock-on. There is a small shake effect too, which doesn't help at all for a stylish look. It makes no sense that a jump shakes the screen, but some heavy attacks don't. We already explained that jump cancel has a cooldown, but jump cancel has a height restriction too. Downed enemies have a smaller hitbox to JC, but if you're really close to the ground, you can't even JC at all, no matter the enemy. You can't remove that awful JC animation no matter what. So, my advice on how to use it, JC, is to cancel it as fast as possible with any other action. By doing so, in a visual aspect, you barely notice that you did a jump. Technically, you do a jump cancel to reset your actions, not for anything else. If you need height when you use a JC, you can use Air Hike. Dante looks horrible when doing a neutral JC, but it can work for some setups. There are some exceptions though. You can mask the animation if you JC a rocket because Dante is not visible due to the explosion. Jump cancel is probably the most important aspect of your aerial combat. It helps by correcting your weight and your position due to resetting all your actions, including movement ones. You should master JC before trying anything more advanced. Remember that in order to quickly make a smooth JC, the only requirement is to press the jump button and quickly use any action as fast as possible. You will notice how smooth it was based on your speed. Zero height is what we call when Dante is in the air, but some moves will be executed as ground attacks. In order to reach this state, you need to be very close to the ground. The game will recognize your position as both in the ground and in the air. You can get into this state by accident sometimes. But you can get into this state very easily with some techniques. The easiest way to achieve it is by using Trick Up into a normal enemy, using Guard, and making a normal Cavaliere attack. Cavaliere is pretty slow, so we will carry the weight gained by Guard doing this attack. This sequence automatically puts Dante in zero height. You will experience for yourself what kind of attacks will be executed in the air or on the ground following that same sequence. Look at this examples. Zero height is considered something advanced, because you have little time to keep in this state or go into something that you can manage easier. Due to being really close to the ground, a step in false, and you'll lose this position. Not only allows you to use some ground attacks when you're technically in the air, but also enables some glitches that we will see in other sections, greatly enhancing the usage of zero height and making very stylish sequences. Apart from that, when you're in zero height and transform into SDT, it counts as being in the ground too. This means that you'll be able to use SDT jump when you never touch the ground. In this state, Revolver and Long Revolver will be executed as the short versions. Also, Mustang will be executed as Ground Mustang. In this section, we will cover all kinds of tech, tricks, and glitches that we didn't cover previously. Each one will have a separated subsection to explain it properly. I've decided to incorporate these individually because they're very useful when you're an advanced player that has mastered the basics and fundamentals of Dante, in most cases. Round trips usually goes to the enemy you're targeting with lock on as soon as you stop holding the style button. However, there is a glitch that forces round trips to go into the direction of Dante's facing. In order to execute it, you need to switch out Swordmaster for any other style or switch your weapons. At the same time, you stop using lock on. If you did it correctly, you will see that the swords will be placed where Dante is facing, and they stay there for the full duration. This glitch has great combo potential. Sometimes one of the summoned swords can stick to the enemy, and the others goes to Dante's facing. This happens because the glitch didn't go smoothly, probably due to non-perfect inputs. If this happens, it means that you're close to executing the glitch properly. Ground trick can be jump canceled like any other move. However, there is a glitch that makes ground trick really useful. As soon as you're in position to jump cancel, you need to perform ground trick, and right when Dante disappears, stop using lock on and make a jump. If you did it correctly, you will see Dante jumping almost on the ground. You did the ground trick glitch. This glitch automatically puts Dante in zero height state. So, the action you perform after the jump is really important, as some moves can't be executed in zero height just like we've seen in that section. The most common moves to use after the glitch are Sky Star and Aerial Rave, because these moves don't require the use of lock on again. The glitch works because you successfully did a jump cancel when ground trick is performed. It is important to know that the jump cancel hitbox needs to be where Dante executes ground trick, not when Dante is going to reappear. The Mustang Glitch is related to zero height and weight. We've seen how you can perform ground Mustang in the air by being in zero height state and using Skystar. This in fact uses a grounded Mustang when you're still in the air. However, if you add some weight before executing Mustang, you will see that Dante does the grounded Mustang but goes forward. A tiny amount of weight can be gained by executing a simple aerial rave before using Skystar, and this will trigger the glitch. Remember that in order to set up this, you need to be in zero height state. This glitch is often used alongside with the ground trick glitch to easily get the perfect position. Desync is the name we gave to this tech, where the DSD swords are executed in the previous position of Dante. This is possible by executing the swords right after trick up or ground trick. We've seen how you can jump cancel ground trick even after Dante disappears. This means that Dante is still in the initial position, and the same applies for air trick. Summon swords are going to be executed at the initial position until the whole animation ends. This will depend at which moment you perform the swords, but that's the basic rule. This has insane applications and goes really well with hat trick. You can be really creative with this tech, and it will help you to displace the enemies at the same time you move around. This is a basic glitch that happens when you use shotgun and rose taunt. By pressing gun, and immediately after pressing taunt in the air, shotgun is going to be fired with no animation at all, while Dante throws the rose. The shot does the same damage and has the same properties as a normal shotgun shot. This glitch is very inconsistent, and it won't come out even half of the time. You can do it after a Mustang and will look like this. The weapon switch glitch is one of the first bugs discovered in DMC5. It consists of attacking with one weapon, but using the properties of another weapon. For example, you perform a move that belongs to Cavaliere, but that same move is performed with Cerberus weapon. The glitch has different triggers depending on the weapon. Let's take a look at the basic one. Some strings can be initiated with the required weapon, but can be finished with another weapon. Example: Prop is part of DSD combo C. Shredder is the last part of that combo. You can input Prop and then switch to Balrog and input a move that doesn't exist in that weapon, which can be back to forward melee or style. That input will trigger the glitch, and you simply need to input melee again to make Shredder. The non-existent input is only to switch the weapon, but the string needs to be done like normally. You don't need to be extremely fast to make the glitch, but it needs to be done in the middle of the string to keep going. This can be applied for different strings, and it is really useful for Cerberus and Balrog specifically, because you can hold to buffer electric attacks or getting ignited real quick. Here are more examples. There is another trigger, where Cavaliere is involved, and it can be done in the air. You can set round trips or buffer electric attacks very easily. In this variant, you need to input Skystar before attacking with Cavaliere. High side is the most convenient attack to use. As soon as it starts to hit the enemy, switch to another weapon and press the style button while in Trickster. You will notice that Dante is attacking with the new weapon. This glitch keeps the overtop gear too, but it will buffer the ignition really slow. The best part about this glitch is that using Cavaliere after a Skystar is something you can do in a normal situation, and it can lend to new setups using turbulence or round trips. Just like the name suggests, this little tech makes Interceptor to push the enemy backwards. This happens when you are really close to the enemy and input Interceptor as soon as you reverse an attack. The projectile follows Dante's position, so when you turn, the same applies for the skill, hitting the enemy at the opposite angle. The closer you're to the enemy, higher the chances for Interceptor to work in reverse. The attack you do in reverse also matters, because it will say how much Dante will force Interceptor to switch position. This isn't perfectly consistent, as probably it is frame-related, but some attacks like Helmbreaker and proper timings make this perfectly doable even in freestyle. Gunstinger has some hidden tech. The first one is the turning effect. When you launch an enemy, press the gun button, and before the shot comes out, input Gunstinger. If you did it properly, you will see that Dante will turn automatically when he's about to fire. Normally, this is not the case, and the shot won't come out where the enemy is standing. This works with cut-in shots too, where the roll will go in reverse, compared to what's done normally. If you stand still after you did the glitch, you notice that Dante uses the shotgun shot at the end, even if you don't press anything. The other tech regarding Gunstinger is reversing cut-in shots to hit your target anywhere on the screen. This happens because shotgun is a hit-scan attack. In order to make it happen, you need to successfully make a cut-in contrary to where your target is, holding that direction and stop using lock-on. By not using lock-on, Dante fires where he's facing, and it won't hit anything. If you press lock-on again, Dante before firing will correct himself and aim at your target to shoot. However, if you press lock-on again just when Dante is about to fire, you won't give any time for Dante to turn, but the shot will still hit your target, no matter where it is. This is a simple trick that not so many people know about. Man in the red orbs can be discharged slowly in SDT form. There is a move in Dante's kit that slows him down, and that is Real Impact. Use Real Impact, and when Dante is ascending, release Man in the red and transform into SDT as soon as you can. You will notice that some orbs will be discharged to the enemy, but some others will be near you, slowly going to the enemy one by one. The slowed effect will be lost if you go back to human form. This can be really useful and is a very consistent and easy trick to pull off, but sometimes the orbs will knock the enemy at random angles. This is a random name that I figured out for this tech. The trick is really simple and has very good applications. Skystar can make Dante go through the enemy, evading the collision hitbox. This doesn't mean that Dante is actually bypassing the enemy literally. What it really does is going slightly to the side in order to go through. As soon as you do Skystar, stop using lock-on and hold back direction. You don't even need to be pressing lock-on at the moment you make the Skystar though. You just need to be facing where the enemy is and hold back. You see that Dante seems to be going through the enemy, but in reality, he's just going slightly to the side. If you hold the style button after doing this, Dante can use Mustang as well in a weird angle. This looks really cool for some reason. Here we end. The last section can be expanded in the future if I forgot something, which I probably did. This is why I choose to release the full guide in a single video and upload the separated categories one by one, just in case I update the guide. I'm sure you will learn something even if you're an advanced player by just watching it. Keep hunting, Sons of Sparta!